At the far end of a long, sweeping valley, there's a black hole, shadowed by dark walls of rock. They guard a lake of secrets. The only sound is the wind and the soft slap of the water. Dillin Lake, alone and forbidding. For centuries, Dillon has stood alone. Even the one thing that survive here, the fish, are said to be different from other fish.
Dillon fish are noted for being thin, dark, large heads on them. They don't keep at all, I don't know why.
How deep is the lake?
Well, I've heard tales, mind you, that they've tested it and they can't find a bottom to it.
If ever there was a ready-made setting for a ghost story, it surely must be here. A barren spot that's seen tragedy and death.
Well, it's the loneliness and, nobody except yourself up there. And
Have you been frightened at all there?
Possibly. It's a terrible thing to admit, but yes, there's nothing brave about me at all, but it could give you a fright, genuinely.
Dillon's moods can be dark and threatening, but its spell is more than just a frightening loneliness. People tell of voices, cries that ring across the water and echo round the hills. John Owen used to go fishing at Dillon.
Well, I was up there a few years ago with a pal of mine for a day's fishing, and we started fishing about an hour and a half later. We were about 100, 150 yards apart, and I heard a voice, and I took it that my pal had called me to say something. So I shouted to him and asked him what he'd said. And he turned around and shook his head and told me he'd said nothing, you see. So I looked around and nobody about. And a little while later I heard the voice again. And again I called him. And again he shook his head and said he hadn't said anything. Well, this happened once more later on. And I thought I'd better not call him again, or he'd think I was going down the bend or something. So that's all it was to it, you see. But I definitely heard something. I don't believe in ghosts and the like, but I heard a voice, definitely heard something.
Was it a man's voice?
Yeah, a man's voice, yeah.
Had you heard any of the stories about the lake before going up there?
No, this is the odd part, and since when I came down, and I mentioned it a few weeks later to a chap who fishes the lake a lot, and he said to me, "Oh, you've heard them as well." So, and from then on, of course, I heard all sorts of stories about people hearing voices there.
One small boy knows Dillon better than most. John Evans has built up a strange collection in a ramshackle chicken coop.
So this is a panel from the side of the aeroplane. It must have been on the outside because it's camouflage.
He saves the twisted fragments of a ghost squadron of Wellingtons, Lincolns, Ansons and Dakotas that have come to grief around Dillon. A museum of bullet-scarred fuselages, shattered perspex from cockpit windows, and smashed joysticks. The bits and pieces of aircraft that never got home. There's no such thing as a gentle breeze round here. A westerly comes gusting down off the top of that mountain and forms a vicious downdraft that can drag an aircraft out of the sky. And that's why this lonely spot is known as the aviator's graveyard.
We as boys went up to the vicinity of the crash, being nosy, and I remember RAF personnel bringing the bodies of the German crew down on stretchers covered with blankets, and they were passing quite closely to us, and one of the RAF people drew back the blanket and said, "Have you ever seen an Iron Cross, boys?" I don't remember seeing the Iron Cross. What I really remember then, being at a very impressionable age, is the bloated face of the poor chap lying on the stretcher, and the sogginess of his uniform, and the the sadness of it all, really.
30 years later, the elements have softened the debris of war. The fuselage of the Dakota, still clinging to the rock face above the lake, is today hardly distinguishable from the heather and the lichen. Most of it has corroded into Dillon. Only the undercarriage has been washed up from the water. A year ago, divers recovered its tail section and brought it ashore, but long since the water has sucked it back again. But as the horror of it all recedes, the legends continue to grow.
Well, there was some couple up there, and they were convinced that they heard voices. They were having a picnic on the side of the lake, and they were convinced they heard voices, somebody calling, and there was nobody around. And they said they could hear somebody shouting and calling, and then it suddenly stopped. Looked around and there was nobody there.